The final assault on the Keth-4 home system began 6 months after humanity first heard the Altarian cry for help. Admiral Jake Morrison, promoted after his crucial role in starting the Liberation War, commanded a massive Allied fleet composed of ships from 47 different species. The humans provided the largest contingent, but Altarian vessels flew alongside former Keth-4 slaves who had joined the cause of galactic freedom. The Dominion's capital world of Keth Prime was defended by the most powerful military installation in the galaxy. Orbital fortresses surrounded the planet, while massive defense fleets patrolled the outer system. Supreme Overlord Vexkar commanded the final Keth-4 resistance from his fortress palace on the planet's surface, determined to fight to the death. Rather than surrender, President Elena Martinez had traveled to the front lines to witness humanity's greatest military operation. She stood on the bridge of the flagship U's Liberation, watching the enemy defenses on the main display. Elena had aged visibly during the months of war, but her resolve remained unshaken by the enormous cost of the conflict. "This ends today," Elena said to the assembled fleet commanders. "Every species in this galaxy deserves the right to live free from fear and oppression. We finish what the Altarians started when they called out for help." The battle began with coordinated strikes by human and allied forces against the outer defense perimeter. Captain Lisa Rodriguez led her destroyer squadron in hit-and-run attacks that drew enemy fire away from the main assault force. Her ships danced through the defensive grid while launching kinetic projectiles at carefully selected targets. Dr. Helen Brooks coordinated the psychological warfare campaign that had been broadcasting surrender messages to Keth-4 forces for weeks. Many of the alien soldiers were conscripts from conquered worlds who had no loyalty to the Dominion. Her team's efforts had already caused several enemy units to defect or simply abandon their positions. The space battle raged for 12 hours as both sides committed their remaining reserves to achieving final victory. Human ships used their superior tactics and weapons technology to systematically dismantle the Keth-4 defense network. Allied vessels from liberated worlds fought with desperate courage, knowing this might be their only chance for freedom. General Patricia Hayes led the largest ground assault in galactic history as Marine divisions landed on Keth Prime itself. Her forces included human soldiers alongside warriors from dozens of species who had suffered under Keth-4 rule. The sight of former slaves fighting side by side with their liberators inspired everyone who witnessed it. Major Tony Clark's armored units spearheaded the advance toward the capital city while facing desperate resistance from Keth-4 regulars and their slave soldier auxiliaries. The enemy forces were well equipped, but demoralized by months of defeats and the obvious collapse of their empire. Supreme Overlord Vexkar watched his defenses crumble from his command center deep beneath the Imperial Palace. The ancient Keth-4 leader had ruled the Dominion for over a century and had never imagined that his empire could be defeated by species he considered inferior. The humans and their allies fought with a unity and determination that defied all his understanding of galactic politics. How can they maintain such coordination? Vexkar demanded of his advisors. They represent dozens of different species with conflicting interests. Their alliance should have collapsed months ago. His military commanders had no answer for their leaders' questions. The Liberation Alliance had indeed been formed from unlikely partners, but their shared suffering under Keth-4 rule had created bonds stronger than any political treaty. Former enemies fought together against their common oppressor. Lieutenant Colonel Barry Wood led Special Forces teams in the final assault on the Imperial Palace. His soldiers fought through the heavily defended complex while Keth-4 guards made their last stand around their supreme leader. The close-quarters battle was brutal, but the outcome was never in doubt. Squadron leader Amy Chun coordinated air support for the ground forces as her fighters provided cover for advancing Marine units. Amy had become one of the most decorated pilots in human history during the Liberation War, but she took no pride in her combat victories. Too many good people had died to reach this moment. The breakthrough came when Commander Rachel Green's intelligence teams located the central control facility that coordinated all Kethver military operations throughout the galaxy. Destroying this complex would cripple the Dominion's ability to maintain control over their remaining territories. Dr. Robert Kim had developed a special weapon specifically for this target, an electromagnetic pulse device that would overload every computer system in the facility while leaving the surrounding areas undamaged. The precision strike would eliminate the Kethver command structure without harming civilian populations. Combat, Medic Ashley Wright worked frantically to save wounded soldiers from both sides as the battle reached its climax. She had seen, too, much suffering during the war to take satisfaction in enemy casualties. Ashley treated Kethver wounded with the same care she showed human and allied forces, believing that mercy should survive even in the depths of war. The final confrontation took place in Vexkar's throne room as human marines breached the last defensive barriers. The ancient alien ruler stood alone among the wreckage of his empire, still unable to comprehend how his invincible dominion had been defeated by species he had always dismissed as primitives. "Why?" Vexkar asked as Colonel Danny Lewis approached, with his surrender demand. "Why did you sacrifice so much for aliens you had never met? What did you gain from this war?" Danny looked at the defeated overlord and thought about all the friends he had lost during the campaign. Captain Susan Blake, who had sacrificed herself to save an entire world. Admiral Miller, who had died protecting refugee convoys. Thousands of others who had given their lives for the cause of galactic freedom. "We gained the knowledge that we did the right thing," Danny replied. "That's enough." The surrender of Keth Prime marked the end of organized Kethfor resistance. Throughout the galaxy, isolated pockets of enemy forces continued fighting for several more weeks, but the Dominion as a political entity had ceased to exist. 3 centuries of tyrannical rule had ended with humanity's intervention in what began as a simple rescue mission. The liberation of the galaxy's enslaved populations proved to be an enormous challenge that required years of careful planning and coordination. Billions of beings who had known only servitude suddenly found themselves free to determine their own destinies. Human administrators worked alongside representatives from every liberated species to establish new governments and rebuild destroyed civilizations. Ambassador Carol Thompson led the diplomatic efforts to create a permanent alliance among the many liberated worlds. The Galactic Liberation Council was established with its headquarters on the rebuilt Altarian homeworld, symbolizing the chain of events that had led to universal freedom. Carol had been a career diplomat before the war, but nothing had prepared her for the complexity of interstellar politics. Admiral Jake Morrison commanded the first integrated fleet in galactic history, with ships and crews from dozens of different species working together under unified command. The former exploration vessel captain had become one of the most respected military leaders in human space, but he took the greatest pride in seeing former enemies serving side by side. Dr. Helen Brooks established the Interspecies Cultural Exchange program that helped different civilizations learn from each other while maintaining their unique identities. The galaxy had been divided by conquest and oppression for so long that many species had forgotten how to cooperate peacefully. Helen's work became the foundation for lasting galactic unity. The memorial ceremony held on Altaria Prime 5 years after the Liberation War drew representatives from every free world in the galaxy. President Martinez, now serving her second term, delivered the keynote address to an audience that included beings from hundreds of different species. "We gathered here today not to celebrate victory in war, but to honor those who gave their lives, so that others might live in freedom," Elena said as she stood before the monument dedicated to the fallen. They answered a simple cry for help and in doing so, changed the course of galactic history. Prime Minister Valtar, the Altarian leader whose desperate transmission had started the entire conflict, spoke about the miracle of interspecies cooperation that had emerged from humanity's intervention. The small blue-skinned alien had become a symbol of hope throughout the galaxy, representing the possibility of peaceful coexistence. Among different civilizations, the children of liberated worlds played together in the memorial gardens while their parents listened to speeches about sacrifice and freedom. These young beings would grow up in a galaxy where slavery and oppression were historical memories rather than daily realities. They represented the true victory that had been won through so much suffering and sacrifice. Supreme War Leader Vekman, the captured Kethver commander, had spent his imprisonment learning about human culture and philosophy. His final interview before execution revealed a profound transformation in his understanding of the war and its meaning. I asked why humans would sacrifice themselves for strangers, Vekman said to his interviewer. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the HSS Aurora, watching the stars through the main screen. His ship had been traveling through the Kepler 442 system for 3 days now, looking for new planets that humans could live on. The Aurora was not a big ship, but it was strong and fast. Jake had 35 people working with him, and they were all good at their jobs. Lisa Hayes walked up to Jake. She was his second in command and the best fighter pilot he had ever seen. Her short brown hair was always neat, and her blue eyes never missed anything important. She held a small computer tablet in her hands and looked worried. "Captain, we are getting a strange signal from the third planet," Lisa said. "It sounds like someone is asking for help, but the language is not human." Jake took the tablet and looked at the numbers on the screen. The signal was weak but steady. Someone was out there, and they were in trouble. Jake had been flying through space for 15 years, and he always helped people who needed it. It did not matter if they were human or not. "How far away is the signal coming from?" Jake asked. "About 2 hours if we go fast," Lisa answered. "The signal is getting weaker. If someone is hurt, we need to go now." Jake nodded and turned to the young man sitting at the control station. His name was Sam Roberts, and he was the best engineer on the ship. Sam had red hair and green eyes, and his hands could fix anything that was broken. "Sam, can you make the ship go faster?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir, but the engines will get very hot," Sam said. "We can do it for 2 hours, but then we need to slow down." "Do it," Jake ordered. The Aurora shot forward through space like a bullet. The stars outside became long white lines as the ship moved faster than light itself. Jake felt the familiar feeling in his stomach that always came when they jumped to high speed. Behind him, the other crew members held onto their chairs as the ship shook a little. 2 hours later, they found the source of the distress signal. It was a ship, but not like any ship Jake had ever seen. The alien vessel was silver and blue, with curves instead of straight lines. It looked more like a piece of art than a spaceship, but Jake could see that it was badly damaged. Parts of the hull were cracked, and strange blue liquid was floating around it in space. "Lisa, take a team and get ready to help whoever is on that ship," Jake said. "Dr. Collins, come to the bridge. We might have injured people to take care of." Dr. Peter Collins was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had been a doctor for 25 years and had saved more lives than anyone could count. He carried his medical bag everywhere he went, and he never said no when someone needed help. Lisa put on her spacesuit and took 5 other people with her to the alien ship. They used small flying pods to get from the Aurora to the damaged vessel. Jake watched on the screen as Lisa's team carefully entered the alien ship through a hole in its side. "Captain, you need to see this." Lisa's voice came through the radio. On the main screen, Jake saw the inside of the alien ship. It was beautiful. The walls glowed with soft blue light, and there were plants growing everywhere. But the most amazing thing was the aliens themselves. They looked like tall, thin humans, but their skin was blue and silver like their ship. They had large eyes that seemed to hold all the sadness in the universe. One of the aliens stepped forward. He was taller than the others and wore clothes that looked like they were made from starlight. When he spoke, the ship's computer translated his words into English. "I am Veltar, captain of this vessel," the alien said. "We thank you for coming to help us. We did not think anyone would hear our call." Jake picked up the radio. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human ship Aurora. We heard your distress signal. What happened to your ship?" Veltar's large eyes became even sadder. "We were running away from the Korthic Empire. They destroyed our home world and killed most of our people. We have been flying through space for many months, looking for a safe place to live. But our engines broke, and we cannot go any farther." Dr. Collins was already putting on his spacesuit. "Captain, I need to get over there. Some of those aliens look hurt." Jake nodded. "Go, take everything you need." For the next week, the Aurora stayed close to the alien ship. Dr. Collins worked day and night to help the injured Zephyrians. That was what they called themselves. Sam Roberts worked with their engineers to fix their broken engines. The Zephyrian technology was different from human technology, but Sam was smart and learned quickly. During this time, Jake spent many hours talking with Veltar. He learned that the Zephyrians were a peaceful people who loved art and music and learning new things. They had never fought a war in their entire history. They grew their food instead of killing animals for meat. They wrote poetry about the stars and made beautiful things with their hands. "Your people are warriors," Veltar said to Jake one day. "I can see it in the way you move and think. But you use your warrior skills to help others instead of hurting them. This is something we do not understand, but we are grateful for it." Jake thought about this. Humans had fought many wars throughout their history. They had learned to be tough and strong because they had to survive on a dangerous planet. But they had also learned that the best way to be strong was to help others. Kate Sullivan, the ship's communications officer, spent her time learning the Zephyrian language. She was young and smart, with long blonde hair and a smile that made everyone feel better. The Zephyrians loved her because she laughed at their jokes and asked them to teach her their songs. "Captain, you should hear their music," Kate said excitedly. "They don't use instruments like we do. They make their plants glow in different colors, and the colors make the music. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Tony Mitchell, the security chief, was a big man with dark skin and strong arms. He was usually very serious, but even he smiled when he watched the young Zephyrians play games. They were like children, innocent and happy despite all the terrible things that had happened to them. "These people wouldn't hurt a fly," Tony said to Jake. "How could anyone want to destroy them?" Jake did not have an answer, but he promised himself that no one would hurt the Zephyrians while he was around to stop them. On the 7th day, Sam Roberts and the Zephyrian engineers finished fixing the alien ship's engines. The silver and blue vessel hummed with power, again ready to continue its journey through space. Veltar came to Jake with tears in his large eyes. "Friend Jake, we can never repay you for what you have done. You saved our lives and asked for nothing in return. We will remember your kindness forever." Jake shook hands with the alien captain. Veltar's skin was warm and soft, like touching silk. "Where will you go now?" Jake asked. "There is a place called Sanctuary Station," Veltar said. "Other survivors from our world have gathered there. It is hidden in a nebula where the Korthic cannot find us. We hope to rebuild our lives there." Jake made a decision that would change everything. "We'll escort you there. Space can be dangerous, And your ship is still not at full strength. Viltar stared at Jake in amazement. You would do this for us? But Sanctuary Station is many days away from your territory. Friends help friends, Jake said simply. That's what humans do. The two ships left the Kepler 442 system together, traveling toward the hidden nebula where the Zephyrian survivors waited. Jake did not know that this simple act of kindness would soon put his crew and his ship in the greatest danger they had ever faced. He did not know that the Korthic Empire was watching and waiting. All he knew was that good people were in trouble, and that was enough reason to help them. Sanctuary Station floated like a jewel in the purple and gold nebula. Jake Morrison had never seen anything like it. The station was huge, built from the same silver and blue materials as the Zephyrian ships. It curved and twisted through space, like a living thing with gardens visible through transparent walls. Thousands of Zephyrians lived here, all refugees from their destroyed home world. The Aurora had been docked at Sanctuary Station for 3 months now. Jake had told his crew they could leave any time they wanted, but nobody chose to go back to human space. Life here was too interesting, and the Zephyrians had become like family to them. Dr. Peter Collins spent his days in the medical centers, learning how Zephyrians healed their sick and injured. They used living plants that could repair damaged tissue and singing crystals that helped broken bones grow back together. In return, Peter taught them human medicine and surgery. The old doctor had never been happier. Kate Sullivan had become completely fluent in the Zephyrian language. She spent her mornings teaching English to young Zephyrians, and her afternoons learning their ancient songs. The Zephyrians had made her an honorary poet, which was the highest honor they could give to someone who was not born on their world. Sam Roberts worked in the engineering sections with Zephyrian technicians. Together, they had invented new types of engines that used both human technology and Zephyrian bioscience. Sam's red hair was always messy because he forgot to comb it when he got excited about his work, which was most of the time. Tony Mitchell had the hardest job of all. The Zephyrians had asked him to teach their young people how to defend themselves. But Zephyrians were peaceful by nature. They did not like to fight, even when it was just practice. Tony was patient with them, showing them basic moves over and over again. I don't understand why we need to learn this, said a young Zephyrian named Kessara. She was small even for her people, with silver hair that sparkled in the light. Fighting is wrong. Our ancestors taught us to solve problems with words, not violence. Tony put his big hand gently on her shoulder. I hope you never have to use what I'm teaching you, he said. But sometimes bad people don't want to talk. Sometimes the only way to protect good people is to be ready to fight. Jake spent most of his time with Veltar and the other Zephyrian leaders. They had made him an honorary council member, which meant he could help make decisions about the station's future. Jake felt proud of this honor, but he also felt worried. The Zephyrians trusted humans completely now, but Jake knew that trust could be dangerous if the wrong people found out about it. On a quiet morning, Jake was drinking tea with Veltar in one of the station's beautiful gardens. The plants here glowed softly and made music when the wind touched their leaves. Jake had learned to love this peaceful place, but today something felt wrong. Veltar, how long has it been since you've heard from other Zephyrian groups? Jake asked. The alien captain's large eyes grew sad. Too long, my friend. We used to get messages from survivors in other parts of the galaxy every few days. But for the last month, there has been silence. We fear the worst. Before Jake could answer, alarms started ringing throughout the station. The gentle music of the plants stopped, and emergency lights began flashing. Lisa Hayes' voice came over the communication system. Captain Morrison to the bridge immediately. We have a massive ship dropping out of hyperspace. Jake ran through the corridors of Sanctuary Station toward where the Aurora was docked. Zephyrians pressed against the walls to let him pass, their faces full of fear. They had heard these alarms before, on the day their home world was destroyed. The Aurora's bridge. Jake found his crew staring at the main screen in shock. An enormous ship had appeared at the edge of the nebula. It was black and red, covered with weapons that looked like the claws and teeth of some giant predator. The ship was easily 20 times larger than the Aurora. "What is it?" Jake asked. "Korthik. Dreadnought," Veltar said from behind him. The Zephyrian captain had followed Jake to the bridge, and his voice was full of terror. The same type of ship that destroyed our world. On the screen, the alien ship was moving slowly toward Sanctuary Station. Jake could see smaller fighter ships launching from its belly like angry insects. The dreadnought was built for one purpose: destroying entire planets. A signal came through the communication system. The voice that spoke was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. The ship's computer translated the words, but Jake could hear the cruelty in the original language. "Attention, Zephyrian refugees. I am Admiral Thraskol of the Korthik Empire. You are hiding in this nebula like frightened children, but we have found you at last." The screen changed to show the inside of the Korthik ship. The alien who spoke was a nightmare made real. Admiral Thraskol stood 8 feet tall, covered in dark scales like armor. His hands ended in claws that could tear through metal, and his yellow eyes burned with hatred. Behind him, other Korthik warriors held weapons. That crackling with electric fire. "You will surrender all Zephyrian refugees within 24 hours, the Admiral continued. "They will be taken to our mining colonies to work until they die. Any who resist will be killed immediately. This is the mercy of the Korthik Empire." Jake felt anger building in his chest like a fire. These monsters had already destroyed one world full of innocent people. Now they wanted to enslave the survivors. Jake had spent 3 months with the Zephyrians. He had seen their art, heard their music, and learned about their gentle culture. The thought of these beautiful people being forced to work in mines made him sick. "Admiral," Jake said, stepping in front of the communication screen. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Human Colonial Navy. These people are under our protection. You have one chance to withdraw peacefully." Admiral Thraskol tilted his massive head and laughed. It was a terrible sound, like breaking glass and screaming metal. The other Korthik warriors behind him joined in the laughter, showing teeth like broken knives. "A human," the Admiral said, as if the word tasted bad in his mouth. "We have heard whispers of your species, but we have never seen one before. You are small and weak, like the herbivores you defend. Look around you, little mammal. You have 1 ship against my dreadnought. You have 35 crew members against my 10,000 warriors. You cannot stop us." Jake looked at his crew on the bridge. Lisa stood ready at the weapons station, her face hard with determination. Sam had his hands on the engine controls, ready to give everything the ship had. Kate was at communications, her fingers dancing over the controls as she sent messages Jake could not see. Tony stood near the door, his hand resting on his weapon. Dr. Collins had come to the bridge too, still wearing his medical coat. The old doctor's kind eyes were now filled with a cold anger that Jake had never seen before. Even Peter Collins, who had dedicated his life to saving people, was ready to fight to protect the Zephyrians. Behind them, Veltar and a dozen other Zephyrian leaders watched with fear and hope mixed together in their large eyes. These gentle people had put their faith in humanity, and now they would learn what that faith meant. Jake turned back to the screen and looked directly into Admiral Thraskol yellow eyes. When he spoke, his voice was calm but carried a promise that made everyone on both ships listen carefully. "Admiral, You said we are small and weak. You said we are like the herbivores we defend. You're wrong about that, but you're going to learn the truth soon enough." Jake paused and smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You called them herbivores like it was something shameful. Let me tell you what I've learned about herbivores, Admiral. They don't fight because they choose not to, not because they can't. And when someone threatens their family, they don't run. They call their friends." Admiral Thrasgall's laughter died away. For the first time, he looked uncertain. "You have been warned," Jake continued. "That's more courtesy than you showed the people of Zephyr Prime. You have 24 hours to leave this system. If you're still here when that time is up, you'll discover why humans aren't extinct despite being a young species." The screen went black as the communication ended. Admiral Thrasgall was probably laughing again, thinking that one small human ship could not threaten his mighty dreadnought. He was about to learn that he had made the biggest mistake of his life. Jake turned to Kate at the communication station. "Did you send the message?" Kate nodded, her face grim but determined. "Yes, sir. Full priority transmission to Colonial Fleet Command. Admiral Brooks should receive it within the hour." Jake looked around at his crew, these humans who had chosen to stay here with the Zephyrians instead of going home. They were about to face the most dangerous 24 hours of their lives, but none of them looked scared. They looked angry. "What now, Captain?" Lisa asked. Jake walked over to Veltar and put his hand on the alien's shoulder. "Now we wait, and we get ready to show the Korthic Empire what happens when you threaten our friends." The 24-hour deadline expired at exactly 0800 station time. Admiral Thrasgall had been waiting for this moment, savoring the fear he imagined the Zephyrians were feeling. The massive Korthic dreadnought began moving towards Sanctuary Station, its weapons charging with deadly energy dot from the bridge of his ship. Admiral Thrasgall looked at the small human vessel that still floated between his dreadnought and the station. The foolish mammals had not fled as he expected. They were actually going to try to fight him with their tiny exploration ship. The Admiral's laughter echoed through the corridors of his warship. "Prepare the plasma cannons," Thrasgall ordered his weapons officer. "We will destroy the human ship first, then burn their precious station. Let this be a lesson to anyone who dares to interfere with the Korthic Empire." The dreadnought's main weapons began to glow with orange fire. Each plasma cannon was powerful, enough to crack a planet's crust. The Aurora would be vaporized in seconds once the Admiral gave the order to fire. But Jake Morrison was not planning to fight alone. As the Korthic dreadnought moved into firing position, he opened a communication channel to Captain Rick Stone. "Rick, they're moving into attack position. Are your ships ready?" "All ships report ready for combat," Rick replied from the bridge of the Vengeance. "Jake, get your ship out of the line of fire. We'll handle this from here." "Negative," Jake said firmly. "The Aurora stays between them and the station. These people trusted us to protect them, and that's what we're going to do." Admiral Thrasgall was so focused on the small human ship in front of him that he did not notice the strange readings on his sensors. His bridge crew was excited about the coming battle, imagining how they would divide the Zephyrian slaves among themselves. None of them paid attention to the warning lights that had begun flashing on their control panels. The first plasma bolt from the Seal dreadnought struck the Aurora's shields with tremendous force. The small ship shuddered and shook, but Sam Roberts had done his work well. The shields held, absorbing most of the deadly energy. Jake felt the deck vibrate under his feet as the ship's system struggled to maintain power. "Shields at 60%, Lisa reported from the weapons station. "We can take maybe 2 more hits like that." "Return fire," Jake ordered. "All weapons target their main cannons." The Aurora's missiles streaked toward the massive dreadnought, but they seemed like insects attacking a giant. The Korthic ship's armor absorbed the explosions without taking serious damage. Admiral Thrasgal laughed even louder. "Is that the best you can do, little mammals?" The Admiral broadcast on all frequencies. "Your pathetic weapons cannot even scratch our hull. Prepare to join your herbivore friends in slavery." That was when Admiral Thrasgal made his fatal mistake. He ordered his ship to move closer to the Aurora so he could destroy it with his secondary weapons. He wanted the humans to see death coming, to know that their sacrifice had been meaningless. As the dreadnought closed the distance, space around it suddenly erupted in brilliant flashes of light. 47 human warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their weapons already charged and targeting systems locked onto the Korthic vessel. Admiral Thrasgal's laughter died in his throat. His yellow eyes widened with shock as he saw the human fleet materialize around him like ghosts becoming solid. The sensor readings were impossible to believe. Where had all these ships come from? Captain Rick Stone's voice boomed across all communication frequencies, cold and hard like steel. "Korthic Fleet, this is Admiral Stone of the Human Colonial Navy. You fired on civilians under our protection. You have 10 seconds to surrender, or we will demonstrate why humans are not extinct despite being a young species." For the first time in his life, Admiral Thrasgal felt something he had never experienced before: fear. But his pride was stronger than his fear. He had never retreated from a battle, and he would not start now. The Admiral activated his own emergency beacon, calling for reinforcements from other Korthic fleets in the area. "Soft mammals," Thrasgal snarled into his communication system. "You may have more ships than we expected, but you still fight like the herbivores you protect. We are Korthic. We are born for war." 12 more Korthic warships jumped into the system, responding to their admiral's call for help. The reptilian vessels were smaller than the dreadnought, but still heavily armed and armored. Admiral Thrasgal felt his confidence return as he saw his reinforcements arrive. Captain Stone's response came immediately, delivered in a voice that was colder than the vacuum of space. "Admiral, you're wrong about something important. We weren't born for war. We evolved from it. All ships fire at will." What happened next was not a battle in any traditional sense. It was a masterpiece of military coordination that would be studied by tactical experts for generations. The human ships moved like dancers in a deadly ballet, each vessel knowing exactly where the others would be at every moment. The Korthic fought like apex predators, just as Jake had warned. Each ship attacked independently, relying on superior firepower and armor to overwhelm their enemies. But humans had learned warfare through millions of years of cooperative hunting. They fought as a single organism with 47 bodies. The HSS Vengeance led the attack, its massive guns targeting the dreadnought's main weapons. Captain Stone had studied the tactical data that Jake had transmitted, and he knew exactly where to hit the enemy ship to cause maximum damage. The battleship's first salvo destroyed 3 of the dreadnought's plasma cannons and cracked its forward armor. Around the main battle, human destroyers and cruisers engaged the smaller Korthic warships. The reptilian vessels were individually more powerful, but the human ships worked together. When one human ship was damaged, 2 others would move to protect it while it retreated. When a Korthic ship focused its fire on one target, 3 other human vessels would attack it from different angles. Jake watched the battle from the Aurora's bridge, still maintaining his position between the enemy and Sanctuary Station. Even though the human fleet had arrived, he refused to abandon his post. The Aurora continued to fire its weapons at the dreadnought, adding its small contribution to the massive firepower being directed at the enemy. FLAGSHIP, Dr. Collins had come to the bridge to watch the battle. The old doctor stood next to Veltar, both of them staring at the main screen in amazement. The space around Sanctuary Station was filled with explosions and energy beams. as the two fleets fought for control of the system. "I have never seen anything like this," Veltar whispered. "Your ships move together like a school of fish, but each one fights like a predator." Dr. Collins nodded, his kind eyes reflecting the light of distant explosions. "Humans are pack hunters. Veltar, we learned long ago that we're stronger together than we are apart." On the Dreadnought's bridge, Admiral Thrasgall was discovering the truth of those words. His mighty ship was being systematically destroyed by coordinated human attacks. Every time he tried to target one enemy vessel, two others would appear in his blind spots. Every time he thought he had found a weakness in their formation, the humans would shift their positions and attack him from a new direction. The Admiral's tactical officer, a scarred veteran of a dozen campaigns, turned to him with fear in his reptilian eyes. "Sir, we're losing ships faster than we can replace them. The humans are using some kind of advanced coordination system. Our ships can't match their tactical flexibility." Admiral Thrasgall watched in horror as another of his warships exploded under concentrated human fire. The proud vessel that had terrorized a dozen worlds was now nothing but expanding gas and metal fragments. In less than an hour, he had lost 8 ships to the human fleet. But the worst part was that the humans had not lost a single vessel. Several human ships showed damage, but whenever one was hurt badly, the others would protect it until it could retreat to safety. It was like fighting an enemy that could not be killed. The end came suddenly. The Dreadnought's shields finally collapsed under the combined fire of 6 human warships. Captain Stone, still coordinating the attack from the Vengeance, gave the order that Admiral Thrasgall had been dreading. "All ships, target the Dreadnought's main reactor. Let's finish this." Jake Morrison, still protecting Sanctuary Station in his small exploration vessel, transmitted the targeting data that ended the battle. The Aurora's sensors had been scanning the enemy ship throughout the fight, looking for weaknesses. Jake's final gift to the human fleet was the exact location of the Dreadnought's most vulnerable point. 20 human ships fired simultaneously at the coordinates Jake had provided. Their combined firepower punched through the Dreadnought's armor like a bullet through paper. Admiral Thrasgall had time for one final roar of rage before his ship's reactor exploded, taking the terror of the Korthic Empire with it into the void. Surviving Korthic ships, seeing their flagship destroyed and their admiral dead, immediately tried to retreat. But the human fleet was not finished with them. Captain Stone's voice echoed across all frequencies one final time. "No Korthic ship leaves this system. We came here to protect innocent people, and we're going to make sure you never threaten anyone again." Within another hour, the battle was over. 13 Korthic warships floated dead in space, their crews either killed or captured. The silence after the battle was almost as shocking as the fighting had been. Where 13 Korthic warships had once threatened Sanctuary Station, now only debris floated in the purple and gold nebula. Not a single human vessel had been destroyed. Though several showed battle damage from the fierce engagement, Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Aurora, looking at the wreckage of Admiral Thrasgall's Dreadnought through the main screen. His small exploration ship had taken heavy damage, but Sam Roberts and his engineering team were already working to repair the worst problems. The Aurora had held the line until help arrived, just as Jake had promised. Captain Rick Stone's face appeared on the communication screen, his scarred features showing exhaustion and relief. "Jake, how are things on your end?" "Your ship took quite a beating." "We'll live," Jake replied. "Sam says we'll need a few weeks in dock to fix everything properly, but the Aurora is tougher than she looks." Jake paused and looked around at his bridge crew, these humans who had risked everything to protect aliens they barely knew. "Rick, I can't thank you enough for what you and the fleet did here today." Rick shook his head. "Don't thank me. Thank Admiral Brooks." She's the one who authorized Protocol 7. When your message reached Colonial Command, she didn't hesitate for a second. Said that any species willing to risk their lives protecting innocent aliens deserved the full support of humanity. Through the bridge windows, Jake could see rescue shuttles from the human fleet moving through the debris field, looking for Korthik survivors. Even after the terrible battle, human crews were following their standing orders to save lives whenever possible. It was one of the things that made humans different from species like the Korthik. Veltar approached Jake slowly, his large eyes filled with tears that sparkled like stars. The Zephyrian captain had watched the entire battle from the Auroras. Bridge, seeing his people's enemies destroyed by friends who owed them nothing. "Jake," Veltar said in his soft voice, "my people have no words to express our gratitude. You knew us for only 3 months, yet you called upon your entire fleet to protect us. Why would humans do such a thing?" Jake put his hand on Veltar's shoulder, feeling the warmth of the alien's blue-silver skin. "Because it was the right thing to do, my friend. Humans have a saying, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. We've never been good at doing nothing when innocent people are in danger." Dr. Collins had been listening to their conversation while monitoring casualty reports from the battle. The old doctor looked up from his medical tablet with a smile on his weathered face. "Jake, I'm getting reports from all the human ships. Total casualties: 43 wounded, 0 killed. The Korthik lost over 8,000 crew members." Kate Sullivan turned from her communication station, her young face bright with excitement. "Captain, I'm receiving signals from all over the galaxy. News of the battle is spreading through every communication network. Dozens of species are sending messages of congratulations and support." Jake raised an eyebrow. "What kind of messages?" Kate scrolled through the data on her screen. "The Altarian Republic wants to establish diplomatic relations with humanity. The Centauri Trade Federation is offering exclusive trade agreements. And sir, this is amazing. 17 different species are asking if they can join some kind of alliance with humans and Zephyrians." Lisa Hayes looked up from the weapons station, where she had been running post-battle diagnostics. "Captain, the Korthik Empire controlled or threatened most of these species. Now that they know the reptiles can be defeated, everyone wants to be on our side." Jake felt a strange mixture of pride and responsibility. Humanity had come to this remote nebula to help one small group of refugees. Now they had somehow become the center of a potential galactic alliance. It was not what he had expected when he first heard that distress signal 3 months ago. Over the following weeks, Sanctuary Station became the unofficial diplomatic center of the local galactic community. Representatives from dozens of species arrived daily, all wanting to meet the humans who had defeated the mighty Korthik Empire. Jake found himself attending formal dinners with alien ambassadors, something he had never been trained for at the Naval Academy. Sam Roberts worked with engineering teams from 6 different species, sharing human technology and learning new techniques that would benefit everyone. The young engineer had discovered that combining human mechanical skills with alien biosciences could produce amazing results. His workshop had become a gathering place for the brightest minds in the galaxy. Dr. Collins established a medical exchange program that brought alien doctors to Sanctuary Station and sent human medics to other worlds. The old doctor was particularly excited about Zephyrian healing crystals and Altarian tissue regeneration techniques. He claimed he was learning more in these few weeks than he had in his previous 20 years of practice. Tony Mitchell found himself training security forces from multiple species. Unlike the Zephyrians, many of these aliens had warrior traditions, but lacked the cooperative tactics that made human military forces so effective. Tony was patient with his students, teaching them that strength comes from working together, not from individual prowess. Kate Sullivan had become the station's unofficial translator and cultural expert. She spent her days learning new languages and helping different species understand each other. Her talent for communication had made her invaluable to the growing diplomatic community at Entang Sanctuary Station. But the most important changes were happening in the wider galaxy. The Korthic Empire, which had seemed invincible for centuries, was collapsing as conquered worlds rebelled against their oppressors. Species that had been enslaved for generations were rising up, knowing that they could call upon human protection. If the Korthic tried to retaliate, Captain Stone visited Sanctuary Station regularly, bringing reports from the expanding conflict. Jake, the Korthic are losing territory every day. 3 of their core worlds have declared independence, and their military is in complete chaos. Some Korthic commanders are actually surrendering to human patrols, asking for protection from their own people. Jake shook his head in amazement. All this because we helped one group of refugees. It's bigger than that, Stone replied. You proved that the Korthic could be beaten. More importantly, you showed the galaxy that humans will fight to protect innocent people, even if we've never met them before. That's something new in galactic politics. 6 months after the battle, Jake stood in the observation lounge of the newly constructed Earth-Zephyr Friendship Station. The original Sanctuary Station had been expanded into a massive complex that served as headquarters for what was now being called the Galactic Protection Alliance. Ships from 43 different species could be seen through the transparent walls, their crews working together on joint missions throughout the galaxy. Veltar joined Jake at the observation window, wearing the robes of his new position as cultural ambassador to the Alliance. The Zephyrian's large eyes reflected the lights of the busy spaceport as he watched human and alien children playing together in the zero-gravity recreation areas. My friend, Veltar said in his now fluent English, do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had not answered our distress call that day? Jake watched a young human girl teaching a Zephyrian boy how to throw a ball in microgravity while their parents laughed and took pictures. I try not to think about it, Veltar. Some decisions are too important to question afterward. Kate Sullivan approached them, carrying a data tablet and wearing the uniform of the Alliance Communication Corps. Captain Morrison, Ambassador Veltar, I have the final draft of the Galactic Protection Accord. The Council wants your approval before the signing ceremony tomorrow. Jake took the tablet and read the document that would reshape galactic civilization. The accord was simple in its language, but revolutionary in its implications. It established the principle that any species choosing peace over conquest, creation over destruction, and compassion over cruelty would never stand alone against those who would harm them. The document bore the signatures of leaders from 67 worlds and space stations. At the top, in bold letters, was the founding principle that Jake had suggested during the first diplomatic meeting. Strength is not measured by the ability to destroy, but by the willingness to protect those who cannot protect themselves. It's perfect, Jake said, handing the tablet back to Kate. Tomorrow we make it official. The signing ceremony took place in the main assembly hall of Friendship Station, with representatives from every member species in attendance. Jake wore his dress uniform for the occasion, feeling slightly uncomfortable with all the formal attention. He was still, at heart, the captain of a small exploration vessel who had simply tried to help people in trouble. Admiral Helen Brooks had traveled from Earth specifically for the ceremony. The gray-haired woman who had authorized Protocol 7 stood before the assembled delegates and spoke about humanity's place in the new galactic order. 6 months ago, Captain Morrison sent a message asking for help to protect alien civilians. Admiral Brooks said, "Today we establish an alliance that will ensure no innocent people ever face extinction alone. This is not just a political agreement.